Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Tes Vav in Baba Basra. So we're doing for Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asum Batzorah V'Shivya. Yesterday we got till the top of Tes Vav Amud Beis. Let's take it again from the bottom of Tes Vav Amud Aleph, the last two lines, just so we understand what the argument is about. Of course, we're talking about Eov. That's this whole discussion about Eov, the story of Eov. Was he a real person? Who was he? Was it just a mashal? The Gemara said no. Well, he was a real opinion. The opinion who felt that he's only a mashal, we discounted that and we said, well, he has a name. Why would we list his name and his city if he wasn't a real person? The last two lines on Tes Vav Amud Aleph, they said, "Oh, Eov may only gola." Oh, yeah, he was from those who returned from Bavel with Ezra. He was among those. That means he was Jewish. He had a base medrash in Tveria. So he's definitely lived. He was a Jew. He lived at the time of the return of the exile from Bavel, right? Ole Bavel, and he was Jewish. Meisvei. So the Gemara says, he says, yeah, the Gemara says, yeah. Ole Bavel hayo base medrash Tveria hayo Meisvei Yemeshos Shaliyov Mishah Shechsul Yisrael Mitzrayim V'Achiatzu. The days of Eov were when? What were the days from the time they went into Mitzrayim until they went out? So he wasn't Ole Gola. He was, hundreds of years before, when at the time of they were in Mitzrayim. So you see, he couldn't have been up from the Ole Bavel. The Gemara says no. Ema on the top of Tes Vav Amud Beis. Ema kimishah shenachzul Yisrael Mitzrayim. In other words, the same amount of time that they were in that the Jews were in Mitzrayim, ba'ad shah sheyatzu, which was 210 years. That was the time that he lived. It doesn't mean that he lived at the time of Mitzrayim. It means that his years were 210 years. Farshim explained because he was 70 years is when all the calamity befell him, and then Hashem added on another, like doubled his years, as we'll see. Kafal, Hashem gave him another 140 years, so he came out with 210 years. But he could have been from the Ole Bavel. But again, this opinion says he was Ole Bavel. He had a base medrash in Tveria. He was Jewish. Meisvei. Was he really Jewish? Shiva Nevi'im Nesabalo Masaolam. There were 7 prophets who prophesied for the Goyim. Beluhaim, presumably they're Goyim. Elam Bilam, we know Bilam wasn't Jewish, but of his father, because whenever it says Bilam ben Baor, it says the father, his father was also a Navi. Eov, presumably he was a Goy. Eliphaz Atimani, Bildad Ashuchi, with Sofar and Amasi, Beleo ben Bracha Labuzi. So what do you see? How can you say he was the Ole Bavel? He had a base medrash, he was Jewish, Mashma, he was a Goy. So he answered him back, well, Tameich, Eliu ben Bracha, Lab Yisrael, when you say Eliu ben Bracha, the last of these 7, wasn't he Jewish? But Mishpachas Ram, he was from the family of Ram. And if you list his family, his father's family, that's only by Jews that we list them. Now some say, it is true that we do find Goyim, or also Eldad ben Bedad and stuff like that. You do find Goyim, but over here, since presumably in this area here, Bilam, and his father's mentioned because he was a Navi. Maybe the other ones were also mentioned because of Navi. But we say Eliphaz Atemani, Beldad Ashuchi, Tzifra Namasi. You don't mention his father. Here you mention his father as if to show that he's Jewish. Rashi brings out another pshat that Ram is a short for Abraham, Mimishpachas Abraham, to show that he's Jewish. So either way, either because he's listed his family Yichus, including his father, and also Ksiv Mimishpachas Ram, presumably not because he listed his father. In other words, just his name and his father's name doesn't mean that he's Jewish. Bilam ben Bar wasn't Jewish. Eldad ben Bedad, Hadad ben Bedad. What does the pasuk say? Right, those guys. They could be goyim, but since it mentions his whole family, Mishpachas Ram, must be that he was Jewish, or Ram was Abraham. So the point is that how can you say that just this pasuk which says that these 7 Nevi'im prophesied for the goyim doesn't mean that he's a goy? The last one wasn't a goy, obviously. Ella, what does it mean? In Bilam, they prophesied for the goyim, but it doesn't mean that they were goyim themselves. So that Ella, so just like you see by Eliu ben Bracha, the last one, who was Jewish, and then and he's listed here with the 7 who prophesied for the goyim. It means he prophesied for the goyim, about the goyim's lives. Eov was a Jewish prophet. Clearly, he was a prophet. The pasuk says. These were, the Tana says, Shiva Nevi'im Nisnabu Luvas Olam, one of them is Eov. So Eov was clearly a prophet. But he doesn't mean that he was a guy himself. He was a Jew, like we said. He's the Ole Bubble. He had a base medrash in Feria. He was a guy, but he was Jewish. So what's the point of saying here? These 7 Nevi'im prophesied for the Goyim. All the Nevi'im, didn't other Nevi'im also prophesied for the Goyim? They tell you what's going to happen. The other ones, their main Nevuah was for the Jews. But these 7 prophesied mainly for the Goyim. Okay, so again, we said that he is a Jew, right? That he had a base medrash in Feria, and then we say that we tried to prove that he was a goy based on the 7 Nevi'im who prophesied for the goy. It doesn't mean that he's a goy. That doesn't mean he's a goy. It just means he prophesied for the goy. But here we have a brisa which says, "Meisvei chasan haya be'umos ha'olam." There was a pious man among the goyim. The Eov Shmo, his name was Eov. Well, he tells you he's a goy here. That's what this brisa says. Reason he came to he came to this world to get a schar in this world. Hashem brought upon him much suffering. Hiskil machara from God. If he started to curse and blaspheme God, so Hashem gave him double the schar in this world. As we said, he doubled his years that he had. He was 70 at that point. Hashem gave him another 140 years in order to expel him from the next world. In other words, but this brisa clearly says here was a navi among the goyim. Says he's a guy. So the Chassan Hayabum, he was a pious man. He was indeed a pious man, but he was among the goyim. So you see over here that he was a guy. So we have this issue. Who was he? Was he a Jew? Was he a guy? So Gemara says Tanoi, it's machlokas einechem, it's machlokas tanoim. Whether he was a Jew or was a guy. Did time. Now we're going to see a long brisa with different opinions as to when he lived. The proof is going to be at the end that if he lived subsequent to Moshe and he was a prophet, he couldn't have been a Goyish prophet. Because Moshe had requested that when he died, that there be no more Goyish prophets. So if he lived after Moshe, he must have been a Jew. Tanya, Rabbi Lezer Omer, Eo b'mei Shvot HaShoftim haya. He was in the days of Shvot HaShoftim, when the judges judge. What does that mean, Shvot HaShoftim? They judged the judges. When the judge said something, they retorted to him back, who are you? You've seen all this. Why are you living like a nothing, a void life? What does that mean? You've seen all this, right? What's the door that's all void, it's all nothing? So you see over here when Eov said, "Hey, not you all seen them." From the Lashon of Hevel. What generation is it? Was all Hevel? That was a generation of Shvot HaShoftim. So you see that he lived later on at the time of the judges. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, all these different things when he lived. Did he live at the time of the judges? Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, he was much later at the time of Achashverosh. There were no beautiful girls like the women like the daughters of Eov. In all the land, meaning that throughout the whole earth, they were the most beautiful girls. What generation was it that they were looking for nice-looking girls? That was remember when he was replacing Vashti? Right. So it must have been that he lived at Achashverosh because he said that nobody was as beautiful as that. And by Achashverosh we found that they were looking for the most beautiful women. The aim of him made David. Maybe it was in the days of David of by Yabakshu Nara Yafa when David got older. They asked him they were looking for him for a young woman, a nice, beautiful woman to keep him warm. By Yabakshu Nara Yafa, says Hasan B'Chol Yisrael. There it's among all the Jews throughout the boundary of Israel. They looked for a nice Jewish young woman. But here we're talking the whole land, meaning in the whole earth, the whole world. They were looking for the most beautiful one, and that was the days of Achashverosh. So this indicates that Eov lived at the time of Achashverosh. Rav Nassan Omer, Eov b'mei Malchus Shva. He was in the days of the kingdom of Shva. It said in Eov, it says Vatipol Shva, and Shva befell them. Vatikachem, took them captive. Right. So Vatipol Shva Vatikachem. So that was mentioned in Eov. So presumably Eov was at that time a Chum moment. Eob may custom. You had a fourth opinion in this brisa that he was in the days of the custom. Rashi says that's the days of Nebuchadnezzar. Right? Nebuchadnezzar, it says, Kasdim Samu Shlosha Roshim. The Kasdim had put down 3 bands against us. In other words, that so he mentions the Kasdim over there. So he was in those days. So 4 opinions as to when he lived later on, subsequent to Moshe. Some say Yaakov before Moshe. He was days of Yaakov. Dina Bas Yaakov Nasa. He married Dina. He married Tzivach. It says Kedaber Achas Hanavol Sadavi. You speak like one of the disgusting women. When it comes to when they violated Dina. So there it says Navola, and here it says Navola, so it says an indication. So what do you see here? All the last ones, except for the one that says is Yaakov. You see, if he lived at the time of Yaakov, he could have been a goy, because until Moshe's time, there were goyish prophets like Bilam, right? So he could have been a goy. So because we've had clearly 2 different opinions as to whether he was a Jew or a goy. When Bryce over here, he was a chassid. He was a chassid mibein masa'olah. So this goes like these Tanoim. That the 4 opinions, you say what? That he lived either at the time of Shvot Shoftim or Achashverosh or Shva or Kasdim. That was after Moshe. So therefore, he must have been a Jew. Except for the Yeshom, the last opinion that says he's days of Yaakov. How do we know that he must have been a Jew according to the first 4 opinions? If he was from Zayim, after Moshe died, did the Shechina ever rest? Did the divine presence ever rest on the Goyim? Moshe requested that after he died, that there should be no Shechina on the Avicham. They shouldn't have any prophecy. And that was granted him. We will be separated. My nation will be separated from the Goyim. We have Nebuah, they don't. So it must be. So that's the answer. Who was he? Was he a Goy or was he a Jew? It's a machlokas. His generation was steeped in adultery. Shenemar, it says, "Hey, natam kuchem." We've all seen this. But why do you live a void life? Why do you live a bad life? Except shubi hashulam shubi nechzaba. In reference to a woman, looking at a nice woman. So we see this idea of nechazeh, of seeing, vision. Like, because he says, why don't you see? You've seen, hey, natam chazisim, you've seen. And also you see by looking at a woman, we have the notion of nechzabah, indicating that his whole generation was steeped in lewdness and adultery, promiscuousness. Maybe it's his chazisim is like a seer, lashon of a prophecy, the sif chazon Yeshayahu ben Amos, right? The chazon of Yeshayahu ben Amos, the vision of his, maybe it means the vision of a prophet. Sim Cain, what the pasuk goes on, it says, Lama chazeh chazisim. We said, what the pasuk says, what was the pasuk? You've seen it all. So you could say the chazisim refers to prophecy, but what's the lashon of lamazeh hevel tabalu? What does that have to do with prophecy? Must mean that he said you're talking about something bad. In Cain, lamazeh hevel tabalu lamli. What do you need that for? So it must be. You could compare chazon to the chazon of looking at women or the chazon of a prophet. More likely that it's a chazon of looking at women, and therefore indicating that his generation was one of promiscuity. The pasuk is the beginning of Rus. What does it mean? Shvot hashoftim. You could read it as the days when the judges judged, or you could read it as the days when they judged the judges. Shvot hashoftim. It's a generation that basically rebelled against their judges. They judged their own judges. Omerlo, if the judge would say, shinecha, should be the gear, should probably shinecha, take away the chip, from between your teeth. So if that's what the judge told the litigant, the litigant would respond, Omerlo, tul koru beinecha, take away the beam from your eyes. In other words, like he gave him a bigger curse. The judge told him something, here's your fine, $100. No, I'm going to fine you $300. Curse some more. He said that your silver, if they told him your silver is dross, in other words, your garbage, your liquor is mixed with water. And as he answered them back in kind. That's how they treated the judges. Amar Shmuel bar Nachmani Rabbi Kala Omer Malkas Shva Isha. When the pasuk says Malkas Shva, doesn't mean the queen of Shva. If you say it refers to a woman, the queen of Shva, no, it doesn't mean that. The queen of Sheba, right? Malkas Shva, it doesn't mean a woman. Isa, it's a mistake. My Malkas Shva, Malchusa Shva, means the kingdom of Shva. Malkas Shva does not mean the queen of Shva, it means the kingdom of Shva. Vayhi Hayom. Now we get back to the actual story in Eov of what happened to him. Vayhi Hayom happened. Vayavo b'nei Elohim v'siyasam el Hashem. The angels stood before God. Vayavo gam ha-satan b'tocham. And the devil, the Satan, also came among them. Yom Hashem al-Satan. We're at the first of the widest lines in the Gemara now, near about 2/3 of the way down. Vayom Hashem al-Satan. Hashem said to Satan, Me'ayin tavo? Where are you coming from? Vayan Satan. And he said that he's traveled Mishor Kol Aretz. I've traversed the whole world. Shatati v'chol olam. I've traveled the whole world, kulo, the entire world. I haven't found anybody as trustworthy as Ka'abdach Avram, like your servant Avram Avinu. Shamartalo, you told him, Kuma salech baretz. You promised Avram, come walk across the land. It's length and width. I'm giving you the whole thing. In other words, I granted all of Eretz Yisrael to Avram Avinu. Even so, when he couldn't find a burial plot for his wife Sarah, I should come to buy it from Ephron, $400 and all that over the socher. He didn't complain about your treatment of him, about your characteristics, about your meter, the way you've treated him. He didn't complain about that. Look how great he is. You promised him everything, and when he didn't even have a burial place, and he paid for it. He didn't say, "Hey, the whole thing is mine." Have you paid attention to Abdi Eov? Have you seen my servant Eov? Nobody's like him in the whole world. Yet, if he was a guy, that's a little bit hard to understand how God praised him like that. But there's the pasuk, according to that sheet, he was a chassid. He was a pious man among the Goyim. There are good people among the Goyim as well. Greater is the praise given to Eov more than that Avram. The Ilu Avram says, now I know you are a God-fearing man. It says not only is he a God-fearing man, he's also tam v'yosher. He's simple and straight. The Samara, and he turns away from evil. He was generous with his money. He was very giving with his money. He was generous. The meaning of the world is Rashi explains like this. Let's say a boss owed the worker a half a penny. There's no half penny, right? How you get a half penny? So what they do is we'll go to the store, we'll buy a candy bar for a penny, and we'll split it in two, right? So you get your half penny that way. That's what he did. Eov didn't bother with that. He just gave him the whole penny. That means to say that he was a batman. He waived his rights to the body. He was a generous person, right? The meaning of the world is that if you owe somebody half a penny, you go to the store, you buy something for a full penny, you split with them. Eov batman mishalo. Bayana Satan Hashem, and the Satan replied to God, Vayomer, Hachinam Yorei Eov Velikin. You think he's a God-fearing for nothing? There's a reason why he's God-fearing. You've been nice to him. Halo ata sachta ba'ado. You protected him, right? Ba'ado ba'deso ba'kol shalok. What goes on? And about Maisa Yadav, you're protecting him. You're giving him all kinds of benefits, and you're like a cover for him. You built a fence around him. My Maisa Yadav. What do you mean by the work of his hands? At Maisa Yadav Barachta, you blessed the work of his hands. What does that mean? His work. Amar Shmuel bar Yitzchak. Whoever took even a penny from Eov, if Eov gave somebody a penny misbarach, he was blessed by that. In other words, his money, so to speak, like Lubavitch Rebbe would give out dollars to people. They had the dollars. It was like a blessing for them. So here also, whoever took money from Eov was blessed. Mayu Mikneo Paras Bards, and his cattle spread out across the land. Rabbi Yosef Chanina Mikneo Shal Eov. Parts of his cattle broke the fence of the world, meaning they broke the rules. How so? The meaning of the world is Ze'evim Horgim Ha'izim, that the wolves killed the goats, right? Izim Horgim says they were so powerful. In other words, he had such a wonderful herd that his goats could kill the wolves. In other words, they protect themselves. So say that the Satan complained to God. Of course, he's God-fearing. You protected him and given him all kinds of benefits. His money is blessed. His cattle are unbelievable. His herds are able to fend for themselves. But however, God, Satan said to God, if you would send your hand, and touch everything it says. In other words, if you would take away all these great benefits, you think he wouldn't curse you to your face? Okay, let's give it a shot. Everything that he has, all his assets, are in your hands. You could do with all his assets whatever you want. Everything that he owns, his family, his assets, everything. But don't send your hand against him. In other words, don't hurt him personally. Don't hurt his body. Now, this pasuk of Rak Elav Al Tishlach Yadecha, we're going to come back to that in a little while. We'll see the reference to that. So Rak Elav Al Tishlach Yadecha, but don't touch him. Touch him. Now, what happened one day? All of Eov's kids were sitting at a banquet. His sons and his daughters, they were sitting, eating and drinking yayin, in the house of their elder brother. The Malach came to Eov, and he said, the Eov's cattle were plowing, and Sonos and the donkeys were grazing right next to them. As if to say, what do we mean by that? The cows are plowing and the donkeys are eating or grazing next to them. Hashem was so good to Eov that he gave him a taste me'ein olam haba, from the next world. What do we mean by that? Rashi explains that in the next world, people will get pregnant and give birth the same day. Won't need 9 months. They'll get pregnant. That's the next world. They're all going to be good. Here too, the cows were plowing up and doing the seeds, and right away it grew right up. Like Jack and the Beanstalk. It grew right up, and the donkeys were grazing on the same right afterwards. A second later, it grew up like that. They were able to eat that. So that's like Olam Haba. Hashem gave Eov a taste of the next world. That's what it says. They gave a taste of the next world. While this Malach was speaking, another Malach showed up. Vayomer, Eish Elohim, a fire of God came down and destroyed much of your assets. Ozeh Medaber Bezeba. Another, while he was speaking, another one came and said, "They are custom some Shlosha Roshim," which he said the customer came and they captured Vayifshtu Asikmal Algamam, and they took away the camels. They spread out and they abducted all the camels, all the livestock, and they abducted they stole all your livestock. While this one was speaking, another Malach came. Like we said before, your children were all having a meal at your eldest son's house with wine, etc. A big wind came, a tornado, midbar, from across the wilderness, and knocked away the four corners of the house, and the whole house fell on alarm. Everybody was killed. In other words, first they came with messages that your assets were taken away, your crops were burned up, and your cattle were either killed or destroyed or kidnapped, and now your whole family's been wiped out. Eov got up, he rent his garment, his coat, and he shaved off his head in mourning. And he said, I have come out naked from my mother's womb, and I will return there also naked. Hashem Nasan, Hashem Lakachi, Hashem Baruch, those famous words. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. May God's name be blessed. B'chol lochat Eov. With all this, all that happened to him, he did not sin. He did not attribute any foolishness to God. That's not tefillah, that's tifla. Right? When we say, so many times the Baal tefillah makes a mistake when we do the slifas, because it looks like tefillah. It's the end, the last couple of words say it's tifla. He didn't attribute any tifla to God, meaning he didn't complain. One day, again, later on it came. Again, the angels came to stand before God. Where are you coming from, boy? Satan, as Hashem. The Satan replied to God, you saw Kalaretz, I traversed the whole earth. Again, the same argument I had before. Shatati b'chalolam. I've traveled across the whole world. I haven't found anybody like your servant Abraham. You promised him, come and travel across the land. We're at the first of the wide lines now on Tesai and Aleph. Across its length and width. When he wanted to find a burial plot for Sarah, he couldn't find any place except for buying it at a high price from Ephron. Well, here and he didn't complain. Hashem said to the Satan, have you looked at Eo? There's nobody like him. Even after all that I allowed you to do to him, to destroy all his assets and his family, he still stays in his simpleness. And you try to sway me away, to turn away, Bo, you turn me away from him despite his goodness, and you turn me away to try to swallow him, for no reason, for nothing. You just were trying to test him for nothing. And look what a tzaddik he is. It wouldn't be that the pasuk says this. You couldn't say it. And also, it's like a person who's seduced. Like a Kodesh Baruch Hu can be seduced and can be swayed. Masisatana, in the Brisa, we explained that what does the Satan do? Yored umata. He goes down to the earth and he seduces people to sin. But then he goes up umargiz and he induces God to be angry at them. No to Rishus, he takes permission from heaven, but no to Risham, and then he kills him. What a bad guy this is, this Satan. He first causes him to the guy to do bad. Then he goes up and he induces God to be angry because the guy downstairs did bad. Then he gets permission to kill him. Bayana Satan as Hashem Vayomer, or bad or, skin against skin, meaning a person will defend his skin against anything. When anybody's coming to kill him, his last resort, he wants to save his life. A person would give anything to stay alive. Nobody wants to die. Ulam shlachna yadcha v'galat samo. If you go and start hurt his bone and flesh, meaning if you go attack him, his body, his personal body, if he won't curse you to your face, God. In other words, that's all because you've taken away his assets. Try to go against him himself, make him bring suffering upon his body and see what happens. Okay, all right, give it a shot. Achas nafsho shmor. Okay, I'm telling you that you're allowed to hurt him personally, but you can't kill him. You can't kill him. That's nafsho shmor. In other words, you can hurt him, cause him to suffer. Achas nafsho shmor. And we saw that pasuk before. Rak elav al tishdei originally. Now, after he lost all his assets, and he allowed him to go cause him personal, physical suffering, but don't kill him. And the Satan left God. Vayaches Eov, and he smote him. It says there with gave him boils and shchin, etc. He caused him physical suffering. Satan's difficulty, his suffering was greater than that of Eov. Why? Mashal Evetz, like example with an Evet, Shamarlo Rabo, his master told him, Shmor Chavis, break the barrel, Ushmor Esyena, but make sure you don't lose the wine. In other words, he said you're going to hurt him so much, but make sure he doesn't die. Amr Shlakish. Shlakish says, who's Satan, who Yetzaharu Malchamav? It's a famous line in Shas that the Satan is the same as the evil incarnation, the same as the Malachamavas. He's the one basically who seduces people, and he's the Yetzirah, and he's the Malchamavas. Who's Satan? The Sibei, Satan Meis Ben Hashem, right? In this discussion, he's the one who seduced him, etc., caused him all these troubles. He's a Satan. Who Yetzirah? How? It says here, rock. It says Ksivasam embraces. It says, right? Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min ura, right? Rak kalayom. Ki yetzer lev ha'adam rak kalayom. That's what it says in Bereshis, right? That I'm not going to destroy him because that's a yetzer. Ki yetzer lev ha'adam rak kalayom. And the pasuk does something like that. Rak kalayom. And so here's rak kalayom. It says here rak elav al tishachedecha. The pasuk we quoted before. Rak elav tishachedecha. So you see rak ra the yetzer ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min urav, right? Yetzer lev ha'adam rak kalayom is referring to the evil inclination, and that's rak elav al tishachedecha, also referring to the satan that with his inclination. So the connection of rak and rak tells us that the satan is also the yetzer hara. Hu malchamavas. The Chassid says here, achas nafsho tishmor, not from rock, but it says achas, but you make sure he doesn't die. So it's up to him whether he's going to die or not. In other words, he said, listen, you could kill him, but don't kill him. So it means that Satan has the power to kill him. So we see that he's also the malchamavas. If he wants to, he can keep him alive. If he wants to, he can kill him. Obviously with the instruction of God. But here God told him that don't kill him. So it means that it's up to him to kill him. Amar of Levi. Satan upnima l'shem shemaim niskav. Even though the Satan pnima l'chora did something that didn't seem right, however, they really had good intentions. What do you mean? Satan keeping the chazal Kodesh Baruch Hu did not die to Basri. Once the Satan saw that God was, so to speak, playing favorites with Eov, that he was doing nice things, as we saw, he gave him ein olam haba and treated him so nicely. Amar chas v'sholom min shilei l'rachmenusei. God forbid, are we forgetting the love of that Avram had for God and God's love for Avram, that you're making such a big deal about Eov? That's why he brought up. He says, where have you been? He says, I've traversed the whole world and find nobody like Avram. So when he said that, he meant L'Shem Shemayim. He really meant to say, okay, you're nice to Eov. What about Avram Avinu? Are you belittling that? Penina, the Siv. Remember, it says that he had Penina and Chana were two wives. It says Penina and her tzara Chana provoked her ba'avur hara'ima because of the because she upset her. What do we mean by that? Rashi, the fourth line of Rashi, from the top of the page, Shetisram al Shehiyakara v'Tisbalel. In other words, when Penina provoked Chana, sort of made fun of her, that she's childless, she did it in order to provoke her, not just to make her angry. As it seems like, that Penina made fun of Chana, that, look, you don't have any kids. No, she did that to provoke her to feel bad, that she should pray, to induce her to pray. So here also, in both cases, Satan really had a good intention. I mean, the Satan had a good intention because he says, what, you're forgetting about Avram Avinu? He meant that's L'Shem Shemayim. And Penina also did it L'Shem Shemayim. She provoked her in order to induce her to pray. Dorsha, Rav Yaakov said this drasha, that the Satan and Penina had some kavan of Shem Shemayim, but Papunya, that's Rav Yaakov said this drasha. Also, Satan came Nashkel Kar and kissed him on his feet because he said something good about the Satan. Usually, nobody says something good about the Satan. Here he said something good that, he did it L'Shem Shemayim. Chozos, L'chati Yibisvasav. Eov never sinned with his lips, never said anything bad against God, didn't blaspheme God. Amarava. So he says, since it says in the pasuk that he didn't sin with his lips, Amarava, he didn't sin with his lips, but he sinned in his heart. My comer, what did he say? He says, Eretz Nasna Biad Russia, a land given over into the hands of the Russia, the Satan, Penei Shofter, Yechasa, and you will cover the face of the Shofter, meaning that you won't see any good judgment. Imle Eifo Mihu. Who we talking? If this wasn't done, who did that? Now you could interpret that as being that he's talking bad about God, right? He didn't say it specifically. He said, "In the hands of Russia, miu Amarava bikesh iyav lavkara alpan alpia." He wanted to turn over the plate, meaning he was rebelling against God by saying that. Who caused all this? It's a land given over to the hands of the evil ones. No judgment. If not this, who caused all this? Amleabaya. Can I get a son? He was not speaking about God. He was speaking about the son. It's a machlokas. Russia. These words that Eov said, its lands given over to the hands of the Russia, or at least that he thought these words. He wanted to turn over the plate, meaning he was rebelling against God. Lo de Rav Klapi Sod. So I speak about the Sod, not about God. Al Daitcha, you know, Kilo Ersha, that I wasn't evil. I didn't do any bad. But nobody can save ourselves from you. Meaning, I didn't do anything wrong, and yet, if you want to do bad, you do bad to people. He wanted to exculpate, as they say. He wanted to pater up everybody from the din. Why? Because when we say there's no free choice. If there's no free choice, you can't judge me. Why is there a judgment of you're judged for good or bad? Because you had a choice whether to do. Here he said, here effectively he's saying, I didn't do anything bad, but you can't save yourselves from this. I'm going to fun up. Rabban Shalom, Barasa Shore, you made the shore, Parsos of Stukas with splitos. Barasa Chamor, you made the Chamor, Parsos of Stukas with cleaved hoofs, but they're not split. Barasa Gared, you made Gared, Barasa Gared, you made Gehenna, Barasa Tzadikim, you made righteous people. Barasa Hashem, as you did all this, you didn't give us a choice. You made a shore with hooves, you made with split hooves, you made a shore without split hooves. You made Gared, and you made Gehenna, you made Tzadikim, you made Tzadikim. They didn't become tzaddikim on their own. You made Rashon. Who can refrain you from what you do? What did Eov's friends answer him? Afata, you also tofer, you're breaking fear of God, and you're lowering the standards of God. In other words, you're saying evil things. Why? Baruch HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yesara. Hashem made the Yisra, you're right, famous line, but he also made a tablet, he made the Torah as an antidote to the Yisra. In other words, God didn't make evil people bad people, like Gemara says in Sota, the first page, the first stop of Sota, right? He quotes over there, Rashi brings down the whole thing there, that when a baby is born, it brings the drop before God, and it's determined he's going to be rich, poor, tall, short, dark, light, all those things. But Yiras Hashem depends on the person, right? That the person has his own free choice for Yira. So God doesn't make an evil person. God doesn't make a good person. God makes a person, and he has the Yitzhar, and he has the Yitzhar, he has the Torah, which is an antidote to the Yitzhar. Darsh Rava.
This is the Dapim.
Good. So we'll go with this sheet that goes with the idea that we're talking about for the Jews. Even if at this point, you could say this whole thing is going according to the robe of the sheet, that he's a Jew, that he's not going according to that sheet. The one who says that is a guy, so he wouldn't interpret all his words with this whole drasha. This is a drasha. These words are not in the pasuk, right? The pasuk is it's up to you. But all this, fine. Those are the words of Eov, but now this explanation is the drasha, not what's in the pasuk. And as I guess you have to say that from the psukim in Eov, you cannot definitively say whether he's Jewish or whether he's not. We have to bring this.
That question, it seems to be the unanswered question here. It's not whether he was Jewish or not, whatever it was, but whether the Nebuah is for the Goyim or for the Jews. We said that it's different than Yeshayahu saying that all he wants to do because robe.
Right.
But if this is all for the Goyim,
why
is it in the Tanakh?
Yeah, it's right.
Why is it even in the Tanakh?
Yeah. Well, he said these seven Nevi'im, including Jews, maybe Eov was Jewish or not, you can't prove it, but these seven Nevi'im prophesied for the Goyim, like Bill.
That's the question that seems to be unanswered.
Yeah, well, the Goyim are part of the world too. They also need the Nebuah. But the Goyim also get at the Nebuah. You need the Nebuah for the Goyim too. Darish Rava, Maida Siv, Birkas Ove Alai Tavo, the bracha of the one who's lost will come upon me. This is all in Eov. Bracha of the one who's lost will come upon me. V'leiv Almona Arnin, and I will cause the heart of the Almona to sing. Because of it, but was Mlamachaya Gozel Shaddai Misam. Again, Eov was a tzaddik, as we saw. He was a chassid. Chassid maybe it was Olam, but he certainly did good. Hashem gave him Ein Olam. What did he do? He would steal a field from orphans, and improve it, and give it back. That doesn't mean steal. Can't steal karka, but it means he on his own he went and he improved the fields of Yisomim who couldn't do it on their own and returned to them. He did a great chesed. And I will cause the heart of the widow to sing. Whenever there was almana, nobody would marry the almana who wanted a a woman, a widow, presumed without any money, to learn Havi Nusba, nobody would marry her. Havi also he went, Shadi Shmele, he went and he sort of made himself her protector. He associated his name with her. Havi also Nusba, then they came and married her, then caused her to sing because she was finally married. Flu Shakel, Yishakel, Kasi, if my anger, it's like with a sin, my anger was weighed the Hosi, the Maznayim, and my calamity on a balance scale. If you would put my anger and my calamity on a balance scale, Yisuyachah, they will be equaled out. As if to say that look what's happened to me. Amarav, Afra Lapume Dio, dust into the mouth, throw dust into his mouth. Chavusik Ishmaya, this is how he's talking towards God. In other words, like he's saying, this is what he's questioning God's judgment. If there would be somebody, a neutral middleman or a judge who could judge, yes, he'll put our hand on both of us. Again, he was like saying to God, like, what? It's not fair. Amarav, again, with the dirt into his mouth, dust into his mouth. Can you ever have a slave, a servant who can scold his master? That's what he's doing. Bris karasi la'inai. My eyes made a covenant. What does that mean? Umas bonan apsula. I wouldn't even look. What do I know about apsula, young virgin? Meaning, I prevented my eyes from even looking at women. Amarava afra lapume dio. Again, dust in his eye, in his mouth. Iu bachmaniasa. He was talking about he wouldn't look at other women. Look at Avram Avinu. Avram didn't even look at Sarah, his own wife. He's saying, I never looked at other women. That's such a big deal. Avram didn't even look at his own wife. Remember the story how apparently he saw her in the reflection of the water, of a pool of water. Now I know that the Isha Yifasam, meaning until that now, he didn't know that she was beautiful because he never looked at her. Like a cloud that is finished, that ends and goes away. So a person goes down, and that's it. He goes down to the to the grave. Lo Yalu will not come up. Amarav again. That Eov denied Ches Mason because he said just like a cloud that evaporates and is gone, does never to return. The same way a person who dies never comes back. Asher Besari Shufeni, who put me down, who broke me with in a storm. And he made my wounds. He multiplied my wounds for nothing. He cursed God. He blasphemed God with the whirlwind, with a storm. And the answer with a storm. He broke me with a wind, like he destroyed me with a great wind. Shema ruach sa'ara of maybe he made a mistake here. Maybe maybe a big wind came by. And you confused Eov with Oyev. Like, what did I do to deserve all this? Right? He says maybe a wind came and you got confused. You mixed up Eov with Oyev, and you want to take revenge on your enemies. Maybe you mixed up the same letters, right? Eov and Oyev. Maybe you mixed up. The Sari Shavu, and Hashem answered him also with the storm. The Sim said, Hashem as Eov, Minasar, he answered him from the storm, by Omer. Ezana Kegever, gird yourself like a man, like a man, gird your loins. Eshalcha, I will ask you about the and let me know. Amalai said, listen, here, Harbe Niman Barasi, but I made many hairs in a person. Every hair that a person has, Barasi Lagum, I made for him like a follicle, a source for the hair. Each one has its own hole in your skin. Two hairs shouldn't nourish from the same follicle. If two hairs nourished or got nourishment from the same follicle, they would make a person blind. I didn't confuse between one follicle and another. You think I'm going to make a mistake like that? Who split like for water, rushing water to Allah is like a path or a channel. Who split this? Again, what do you mean by that? Where the pasuk? That's the pasuk. The pasuk is Be'ad Hashem of Minasara. And how did he answer him that way? And the same way, what does it mean? I made many drops of water in the clouds. Every drop, I made its own mold. every drop comes from its own mold. So 2 drops of water should not come out of the same mold. If 2 drops would come from the same mold, the earth, the ground would be washed away, would be destroyed. They don't see a Paris and would not produce any fruit. I haven't confused between one drop and another, each one its own mode. You think I'm going to make a mistake between 2 different people, between Eov and an Oyed? My mashma the high ta'ala lishat. How do you know that the lashon of ta'ala? He said, how do you know that the ta'ala is a lashon of a mold? Amarava Barshila, the Siva says, Vayas ta'ala kebesis saim zera. He made like a trench or a channel of water like that size. The derech lachazes kolos, and I made the path of lightning with thunder, kolos the noise, the thunder. Habikos brasibab, I made many thunders, many noises of lightning in the clouds. B'chol kol v'kol, for each and every thunder braslo shvil, I made its own path of neatzma. Kadesh lo yesh shtei kolos yotzes mishvil echad. So the 2 thunders shouldn't come out of the same path. She'il mol shtei kolos yotzes mishvil echad. If 2 thunders would come out of the same path, machrim eskola would destroy the whole world. I didn't confuse between one thunder and another. Is going to be, you think I'm going to confuse them? That's how Hashem answered him. We'll stop here with this answer. We'll pick it up from here, the last line, tomorrow on Thursday. So hopefully we'll finish Thursday's Daf on time. Yeah.